Thank you again for the invitation. I spoke last year on space-time narratives on the structure of storytelling for immersive media. This year I want to speak about our new project, Future Design. We are based at the Center of Art and Media Technology in Karlsruhe, Germany. And 8 years ago, Gülsel Özkan, my partner, and me, we opened the first research laboratory. The main objective was to get a completely new alliance between technology, art, and science. And another idea was, because technology is going so fast, we wanted to concentrate that technology is not taking over our ideas. So the first concept was content-driven technology. We always wanted to prepare first really great ideas and then create the technology around those ideas. So to showcase all of our works and to invite people who were working in different fields, we founded a Beyond Festival 8 years ago. And there also we have a Beyond Symposium, and this is where we started to work on future design, an idea not only to make design for the future, but start to design the future itself. And now we have a European program under the same title, and since 1 year we created the Future Design Institute. So what is this idea all about? We started to get a lot of partners. We have now more 30 partners, and also a kind of more commercial partners like 3ID, Fraunhofer, and Disney Research. So over the coming decades, new technology will change our life and the way in which we perceive it beyond our imagination. Future Design is a creative and critical conspiracy of science, technology, and art, an experimental laboratory for new art forms and perspective on the social, political, and environmental impact of these new technologies in a global context. Much of what will happen in the next 30 years is more or less inevitable, driven by technology trends that are already in motion. Virtual reality in the home, to an on-demand economy, to artificial intelligence embedded in everything we manufacture, can be understood as the result of few long-term accelerating forces. And these accelerating forces, which are based on digital technology, this is what technology itself wants, or the forces which are in digital technology is interacting, cognifying, flowing, screening, accessing, sharing, filtering, remixing, tracking, and this is the last refugee for human intelligence, questioning. These large forces will revolutionize the way we learn, we work, we buy, and we communicate with each other. Future design, therefore, is concerned with the art of thinking about and the way of shaping the future actively and consciousness-based. We have to blend art, science, history, philosophy, and every discipline in between, offering a vision for tomorrow, a tomorrow that seems incomprehensible. The main object is to attract wide attention on these new technologies and generates an important and necessarily debate and interest to stimulate the use of those technology by independent artists and unrepresented groups, in all the communities. We have to bring these emerging new artistic practices into visibility inside a framework of a critical global cultural dialogue, and to recognize the potential these technology offer in shaping and strengthen cultural identity. Future design contributes to people's assessment of their local identity and appropriation, and works on local solutions for global problems, respecting the local environment. Future design thinking is not kind of an idea which can go in the same to every place. Every place has to identify his specific knowledge, his specific problems and solutions, and those solutions may later become global. At the same time, we have to encourage cultures and helps to bridge between differences. Future Design is an interdisciplinary and highly intercultural project based on mobility-led research, artistic and cultural creation. It focused on the encouragement of people's creativity and free expression, availing itself to the latest and upcoming technology, leading to higher participation of the audience and changing their role from consumers to producers. New technology and emergent markets would change not only the environment, but could lead to sustainable economic development, new forms of social life and exclusion, housing, leisure, and consumption. People will have to adapt to social changes and changing relationship between humans, as well as interrelations of humans with machines, with animals, and with digital and natural networks. And people will have to come to terms with artificial intelligence and probably, in the far future, artificial consciousness or subconsciousness. Virtual realities and network worlds might become part of human life similar to our dreams, which are a nightly routine, somehow separated from our daily lives, obeying to different physical rules. There's a lot of people asking sometimes in how many realities we can live. On our daily basis, we live at least in 3 realities. We have a day world, we have a dream world, and we have a deep sleep world where we have still some cognitive reaction. So we're doing something, we are somewhere. And then we are in literature, in books. So I think humans can adapt to as much realities as there are possibilities. But to work with all those new media, we have to invent a new international visual language. I call it always something between Eisenstein and Einstein. So we have to invent, well, for all those new immersive media, something I called space-time narratives. I spoke about this last year here, but I want to focus on a couple of aspects again, because this is still not researched in no university, and I call it the 4 space-time tensions. What we have learned from 3D film is we have to start to think in space in the beginning in the script. If not, we get 2D films with 3D effects. We have to stop thinking in frames, but when we go to 3D, we have to think in stages, and when we go VR, we have to think in spheres. The space needs emotionally, intellectually, and aesthetically meaning. We have to organize space. We need a depth dramaturgy. I will talk about this later. And this is really important, and we have to do more common research on that. We need stories which not only dramaturgy, but vertical parallax and horizontal tension. I will come to this. So the whole history of dramaturgy, since Aristotle, is how we organize time. And Hitchcock always said, film and theater is life without the boring parts. Yeah? We organize time. And we are quite knowledgeable in that, but in every huge daily, and your daily experience, and in every huge drama, mankind has 3 levels of conflict, or 3 levels of stress. We have an outer plot conflict, a relationship conflict, and an inner character conflict. And we can reflect those different levels of story, or these different levels of conflict, in different layers of space-time. So, for example, the horizontal tension. The horizontal tension is the attraction and the repulsion through places, objects, and people. The horizontal tension is dominant in the emotional network. And that should be very clear, because in our day-to-day life, when we talk about relationship, we always use spatial metaphors. We said we are coming closer, or an abyss is building up in our relationship. So in our day-to-day language, we use horizontal metaphors for expressing relationship. Another aspect, this is all those emotional network things are desires, which are erotic desires in the old Greek sense, that they are wanna have stuff. Whenever I wanna have something, I have a horizontal movers to it. But there's another possibility, and this is the vertical tension. The vertical tension is the constant driving to improve to higher and further development and growth beyond the status quo. And this is based in a character conflict. And I give you an example. In the old time, the Greeks, in the Greek dramaturgy, they said there's an erotic, a wanna-have-driven tension, and there is the wanna-become, a timotic. They call it a timotic tension. And I like to explain it on the case of Achilles. When Achilles was asked by Menelaus to join him in the Troy War, he despised his king. He didn't want to fight for his king. So he went home, and his mother, she was a seer. He asked his mother, "Mother, what should I do? Should I go to Troy, to the war?" And his mother said, if you stay here, you will have hundreds of women, a lot of children, wine, gold, whatever you will. You have a beautiful kingdom. If you go to Troy, you die. But in thousands of years, people will still sing songs about you. And he went to Troy. What kind of erotic motivation is this? He wants to become immortal in stories, in song. That's a timeotic motivation. And you as artists, you know definitely kind of those inner powers which kind of looks for greatness. So the fourth dimension is the z-axis, and this is normally defines especially the relationship between your story, your characters, towards the audiences. And therefore we have to, this is a drama structure we developed for 3D movies, where we kind of used the different internal tensions of story and applied them to space. So when we come to the parallax tension, we have to think about 5 different depth spaces. The first is the intimate space. The intimate space is very close around you, is where you can be touched and where you smell very intensively. Normally, you don't like anybody except your lover or your parents or your children to get into your intimate space. So whenever I saw a VR or a 3D movie where somebody came here, yeah, you don't like that. Yeah? Your nervous system says you are too close. You have to be very careful to enter some intimate space. When we meet outside and I would go into your intimate space without you allowing me that, you will feel very uncomfortable. So as artists, we should be very, very careful to stick some spears and some fingers towards our audiences. The next space is the personal space. This guy takes his personal space very, very serious. Yeah. So once in a while when you drive with the subway here, you have to give up your personal space. Then we have an interactive or social space. The interactive space is, for example, what we are here now. I can still see you guys, you're reacting, who is sleeping, who is kind of making photos, who is texting, yeah? And I can get this feedback. So the social space is a direct feedback space. It's not really complicated for me. It's not dangerous at the moment if you do. But I still get a feedback towards my reaction. Yeah? So this is normally a space where we can work quite nicely in VR and in 3D. Because we react immediately to the space, but it's still comfortable. Then we have a public space. The public space is what I can, for example, I see, if there's not so much light, I can see the people all over there. But normally I don't get any feedback. They will not react to me too much, and I will not react to them. But there's still enough that if somebody would now spring up with a sword, I could immediately react to feedback. So it's a space which is far more ahead than the normal social space, but we have still a direct feedback. And we have a 5th space, which is the surrounding space. And the surrounding space normally creates no feedback, but it creates atmosphere. It would be a complete different scene if we would now have the surrounding space, for example, in Beijing or now in those mountains. You react, you have a direct feedback to the surrounding space only, for example, if that would be volcanoes and they would explode. If not, they would just kind of create in the layers of depth and atmosphere towards your story. So this is when you kind of think about structuring a VR piece and you want to keep all those things in mind. So it's not only always just you try and error. You can construct meaningful space. So we always have to relearn our craft, and this is, I think, one of the most important things for us in my age as professors, that we know that we have to learn every year our profession anew. Yeah, we should not tell the old war stories. We should kind of research with our students, and one of the research we are doing now is participatory storytelling, is how you can create interactive stories. And we created a model for which I call it story function, bottlenecks, and vegetables. To keep a story in a logic that your audience can understand a logic even when they are interactive, you have to make sure that they know the necessary information. So whenever you are on a level in your game or in your film or in your VR, they cannot pass to the next level if they don't have the necessary story functions. But it doesn't matter in what kind, if you go 1, 3, 5, 4, or in another rhythm. But you need that to enter the next level, that the whole thing makes sense. If I don't know your conflict, then I would not understand the next level. So only when you have the necessary story functions in the story, when your audience has watched them, then you can go through a bottleneck towards the next level. If not, it's closed. The next level is closed. But of course, gamers would immediately understand this idea. So we throw in on every level a lot of vegetables. And vegetables are story elements which are really interesting, but they are not necessary. They lead to nothing. Yeah, so you have a wide range, and you still can make the planning. You can still kind of know how much scenes you have to shoot to make this really an immersive experience, and you plan on that. A lot of people always call me, while I call it those story parts vegetables. And I have to confess, I'm a meat eater, and I like to have some vegetables on my plate, but I don't need it. Yeah, so this is what for the parts of, for example, how to create such kind of complex stories, and you still have to can control your budget. So now, stereoscopic and auto-stereoscopic technology, mobile devices with 3D capabilities, 3D laser scanners, 3D printers, virtual and augmented reality, and new interfaces co-developed by engineers and artists are finally fully presenting the third dimension to be creatively used in representation and expression, creating new business models in all industries, and especially in the cultural and creative sphere. A lot of people don't know it. Now in Germany, the cultural and creative industry is the third biggest industry. It's not engineering anymore. It's not automobile anymore. With all those new digital technologies, cultural and creative industry will become one of the main forces of an economy of any country. So in addition to current production and trends of VR, AR, stereoscopic, multiscopic, auto-stereoscopic films in cinema and television, future design focus on new narrative forms of space-time narration and is concerned with a new dimension of moving pictures to space-time stories and a quantum theory of digital dreams. Supported by higher frame rates, higher resolutions, micro and macroscopic insights, super slow motion, and super acceleration, new displays will bring immersive communication not only in your home, but will transform any surface into a screen, and we saw some of those technologies from the colleagues. And telecom distribution on demand, 3D landscapes will change the atmosphere of every. Like a window to the world, and portable 3D devices will enlarge the home screen to wherever you go. Traditional television will be reduced to live events, for example, in sports, politics, and news. New ways of creative thinking can resolve the antagonism between nature and technology. There is no need that our technology are antagonists to nature anymore. If you look like other beings, like ants, they kind of reproduce all the time tons of material. They leave never garbage. So it's just we are not too many on this planet, we are just too stupid. A formula for all future startups is, and we heard this the last days all the time, you take whatever you want, you put artificial intelligence, and then you have a new product. If it's your toothbrush, if it's your car, you can add artificial intelligence to whatever you know and create something new. And in bigger relationships, it will be internetworks which are combined to smart project and renewable energy. And when you research the new, everybody on all this planet has more or less the same information at more or less the same time. So when the next obvious step, is more or less obvious to everybody. So when you start a research on something which is very obvious, you know that you are probably a day in front of Germany or to US. But when you start to look in the shadow, where the new disruptive forces come from, it starts always in markets where it's low quality, high risk, low margins, small market, and unproven concepts. Because when you are successful in the shadow and your idea comes to the light, then there you have those disruptive explosions, which we saw, for example, with Baidu and with Facebook, which in a couple of years became multi-billionaires. So most of the tools of the futures will and have to be supplied by new kinds of energy harvesters, as every house and every cottage could potentially provide more energy than it consumes. Artificial intelligence is already here, and it will increase daily to an extent that AI will make own decisions and could help to integrate individual behavior into the overall ecosystem of the planet and on climate control. We made a research with the University of Oxford, and more or less by 2030, 67% of the jobs in Britain will be gone by automatization and algorithms. In Germany, we have it a little bit better, it's 43% by 2030, which is still almost half of the population, half the jobs we know. So super intelligence, that whenever an AI can create an intelligence which is more intelligent than itself, is already looming around the corner, and it might not only serve the desires of individual humans or humanity in total. A couple of scientists like Steve Hawkins and Max Tegmark believe that super intelligent machines are quite feasible, and a consequence of creating them could be either the best or the worst thing ever happened to humanity. So future design explores the future of digital distribution from atoms to bits, and from bits back to atoms. The emerging Internet of Things could speed us into an area of nearly free goods and services, precipitating the meteoric rise of a global collaborative of commons, and might be the eclipse of capitalism. So a supercomputer can stimulate various outcomes of future crises. So future design thoughts take a complete new approach on problem solving. Future design will not simply extrapolate probabilities. Future design will imagine and simulate a possible and desirable future. And I think I should come to the end. Okay, one last thing. In the future design R&D think tanks, which we are collaborating all over the world, and with Charles, we are preparing a super future design think tank here in China and an institute. In future design, students and artists create not only a new design, but a new narrative and a new vision for the future, creating probabilities and desirable improbabilities beyond the imitation of life. Thank you.